settle those digital asset transactions, and is still a challenge. But coming back to your question of the tokenization, I would say what we see is 3 waves of evolvement, I would say. The first one was the crypto market, which we've seen like several years ago, and it's quite liquid today and working. The second one would be all the digital payments, as I mentioned right now. And the third piece then is the tokenization, and all those parts play together to have a real on-chain settlement and to really realize the advantages from tokenizing the assets and having them on-chain and being able to trade them on-chain. And there's the point, like also Ben said, where we have the discussion of convergence, because if you are a traditional player and looking at those different streams and would like to go into this direction of digital assets, then you somehow have to answer the question how to do this from a technical perspective. How do you integrate the DeFi stream, which comes with a challenge that this is a kind of unregulated space where you have to find a solution to connect to? Or do you build maybe something as an incumbent yourself and provide it to the financial services industry? And I'm not sure what will be in the end, the final solution. I think there will be a convergence more and more in the coming years.
You want to answer something or? Okay. Well, it's not only about TradFi and DeFi, I'd say. It's also like a competition of the global regions that we have. With Mika live in the EU, with Trump maybe as like a crypto positive, let's say, president, with the UAE and also Singapore, also very liberate already. What would you say, what is the region, global region, zooming out, the global region most poised to provide the jurisdictional framework for integrating DeFi into capital markets? Most bullish region?
Europe is dead. That's my conclusion. Everything has to go through America. DTCC takes it all. But we still have investors in Europe. We still have people who will make decisions on tokenized securities. They don't know if it's tokenized or not. But running the numbers, you see that in the US, they are tokenizing by the end of this year. On Canton, but that's just an interim stage. They will do it on a public going forward. Secondly, all the ADRs are also tokenized. Who's not familiar, there's basically a way to sell product to the US investors. So we looked up how many of the DAX companies do have an ADR program. 100%. How many of the MDAX? 96%. How many of the Eurostock 600? 97%. The connectivity to a CSD is very expensive. It's not a question that Clearstream or Euroclear or DTCC, it's just an expensive effort to connect. And they're going to connect it only once. They're going to connect it to one who has the most product. Because Europe failed to actually get something standardized. EVPG was a great idea by lawyers, was a great idea by regulators, but no one cares. No one cares. And I was the one who held the pen on the EVPG when we talked about the first transaction in 2017 and even before. So all that regulators will have to do is look at after a wind down of their regulated entities that you currently have. But there will be, of course, tokenized securities, and it will be buying that. But the FMI will be based in the US.
So Europe is that. A conference in a European city and also 3 business leaders in Europe. Do you share the same view?
Well, I like how it's phrased, Michael, because I think there's some truth to it, right? The threat actually is there. There always has been, right? You have to see that there is already an international market, the ICSD market in Europe, which DTCC always tried to get. So there is already a market where people connect in Europe to invest in euro-denominated debt globally, and it's issued globally. So it's not only Europeans who use that one. DTC always tried to get that and didn't. But if you translate that into the more digital world, it's a new opportunity for US-based infrastructure, which actually have the US liquid capital markets liquidity pool, which is the deepest that exists, to expand into other regions of the world, right? And the question then is, and I see some here, does an infrastructure in Europe, an FMI, decide to be a, let's say, a dumb repository of the asset, because it's issued there, feeds into a DTCC type or a American type infrastructure that then globally connects issuers and investors. So that's the threat, right? Or does Europe get its act together? And we can debate if it's too late or not, right? Get its act together and create a competing ecosystem where, exactly like Michael described, there's one way in, but then you have access to all of Europe. And that's actually then called a European capital market, right? So I think the threat is that we had advanced regulation, and I think we still do have it. Execution in Europe lags behind the US always. And now comes the other difficulty. The moment the US moves and regulation changes, they have the money, the capital, and a different entrepreneurial spirit to really just build, right? And that changes everything, because the moment a US regulator says go, it takes like one planning cycle, which always happens in the fall for the big companies, right? And then the next year they actually execute with sums of money we in Europe would never take, because we don't take that risk, right? So I think the threat is real. I think there are potential answers to it, but it's a painful exercise to go through to really get to that truly competitive state. Otherwise, I agree, there's a lot to lose. And not to be that pessimistic, the European capital market is already run by US institutions, right? So I worked at the largest issuing and paying agent in the world, right? Most of capital is allocated through American banks, right? A lot of M&A activity, all of that is organized and orchestrated. So I don't think we lose that much. We might lose that FMI angle, but I think there's an opportunity to gain more as Europe and more independence as well. I think that's the thing to focus on.